And then we're talking about Sodom and Gomorrah. And let's read from verse 10. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. They struck the men who were in the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they became weary trying to find the door. You see, these two angelic guys, the men, reached out and saved Lot, basically speaking. They pulled him back into the house. And then they did something miraculous and supernatural, if you want to put it that way. Perhaps for the first time, Lot begins to understand that his guests are just more than mere men. They struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness. Obviously, the work of striking the men blind was supernatural. Now, the mob had a physical blindness that matched their moral blindness. See, the angels, they delivered Lot. Let's move on to verses 12 to 14. The angels warn Lot, and Lot has to warn his family. Verse 12. Then the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here? Son-in-law, your sons, your daughters, whoever you have in the city, take them out of this place. For we will destroy this place because the outcry against them has grown great before the face of the Lord. And the Lord sent us to destroy it. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But to his sons-in-law he seemed to be joking. Have you anyone else here, is the comment. The angels were not omniscient. They didn't know everything. Knowing the number and the location of the members of Lot's family was something that, how do we work? Yeah, only Lot knew that. So he goes out and he deals with it. But at this point, the angels didn't know, and he's told to go and do something. I was reading recently, Spurgeon, the great old author and preacher, came up with something. He says, have you anyone else here? The question shows the concern we should have for the salvation of not only ourselves, but for all of our families, our whole house. You see, to his sons-in-law, Lot's daughters were unmarried and had not known a man. These men were sons-in-law by the ancient practice of binding betrothal, not yet fully married. Kind of like engaged, but a little bit more serious than that. And it says, we will destroy this place. The Lord has sent us to destroy it. And for the first time, Lot heard the work of these supernatural guests. Yeah, they're going to wipe the place out. Sodom was destined for judgment. But God wanted to spare Lot and his family. You see, Lot takes it seriously. He goes out and finds his sons-in-law, but the sons-in-law think he's making a joke of it. This was a clear effect that's been had that we just don't see to be able to convince people of the importance of things. We still have that. He seemed to be joking. This was a clear effect of Lot's life of compromise. When he spoke with the utmost seriousness to his sons-in-law about the judgment of God, they didn't believe him. Not even they would be saved from the judgment to come. Isn't it kind of like our community's modern day reaction to the salvation story? We just can't convince people. When we go on just a little bit further, it says in verses 15, the angels, well, what happens here? The angels try to hurry Lot and his family to get out. When morning dawned, the angels urged Lot to hurry, saying, arise, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, and the Lord, being merciful to him, they brought him out and set him outside the city. What's happening here is he's being told, get out. There's no mention of the son-in-laws, notice, so they didn't have a change of heart overnight. They'd be left behind as the angels urged Lot to escape. Yeah. In their urging of Lot, we see the angels may serve as a pattern for evangelism. We need to take notice of some of these things. They went after Lot, going to him in his house. That's been the story up to this point. They warned him what was going to happen, okay? In plain words, he got the point. And then they urged Lot, urging him to flee from the destruction. Yeah, it really is a model for us. Notice the term, while he lingered. Too much of Lot's heart was still in Sodom. So he did not have an urgency to leave the city. A lack of urgency to obey God, even when it's necessary and good. This is a common sign of compromise, and yeah, it can cause us to do the old-fashioned term of backsliding. The men took hold of his hand. I thought, as I read my text, that it gave us a striking example of what we can do. Lot and his wife and the two daughters, well, that was 4 of them. The angels only had 4 hands between them. So they did all they could. There was a hand for each. And you notice the text expressly says they took hold of the hand of Lot and the hand of his wife and the hand of his 2 daughters. They did everything they could. There were no more persons. There were no more helping hands. So there was just enough. Yeah. But there was not a spare hand to spare. And they brought him out and they set him outside the city. Yeah. Abraham asked God to spare the city of Sodom and Gomorrah if there were 10 righteous found there. Well, because there were not 10 righteous people, God didn't despair the city. But he still answered the heart of Abraham's prayer by bringing Lot and his family out of Sodom, even if it was almost against Lot's will. Lot was in the worst of all possible places. He had too much of the world to be happy in the Lord, and too much of the Lord to be happy in the world. Yeah, it's difficult.